just activated. Your weekly football fix kicks off now.
You can follow the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on X, Facebook, YouTube and TikTok.
Red Football Podcast with myself, Kings. Joining me tonight, we've got Neil, and we'll be looking back at the game against Notts Forest with a very, very late winner for Liverpool to keep the pressure on Manchester United and Chelsea in the hunt for Champions League places. We'll also talk about Rio Ngumoha, and we'll pick out one of the other good players for the game was Konate with his defensive display. But overall, it wasn't the best display. But we're going to try and pick out the best bits if we can. But first of all, welcome, Neil. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good, thank you. I think a bit happier than I was after 45 minutes yesterday, and probably after 90 minutes yesterday. So, yeah, all good. It'd be good to talk through it and try and pick the bones out of what didn't seem like a particularly great performance.
The thing from last week's show is myself and Kev talked about. They seemed so up and down, and that's been the story of Liverpool season. They'll put one or two good games, out there, and you think, right, okay, we've turned a corner, we're doing okay. Playing fourth from bottom, Forest, they're not as good as they were last season, and everybody was like, we're doing okay now. Well, we should win this, no problem. They've got a new manager. Me and Kev talked about the new manager bounce, the fourth one of the season for them. Yes, I think he did, because they'd had a buzz from the European game earlier last week. I think they come into this with a lot more confidence. But Liverpool really, again, didn't play well, did they?
No, they didn't. And I mean, they had as you say, they had a really impressive result in Europe on Thursday. But you hope playing away, I think it was in Turkey, on a Thursday night, you would hope that travelling back, they would have felt the effects of that, and a fast start from us would have put them on the back foot. But it was completely the opposite. We couldn't keep hold of the ball. Every time the ball went into midfield, we just gave it away. Appreciate that circumstances weren't helped by the fact that Florian Wirtz pulled out with what seemed like a back injury. Prior to kick off, and I think Curtis Jones you can probably excuse, because his mind wasn't on start in the game. He didn't play well either. He was another one that didn't play well, but he has probably more excuse than the likes of Gravenberch, who I thought was very poor. So yeah, I think there was a bit of a new manager bounce. I never felt, even with Sean Dyche in charge, that it would be an easy game. It never feels like it's going to be an easy game at the City Ground. The crowd, can be intimidating there, but we didn't help ourselves with the way we played, and I think we saw from them a bit of a new manager bounce, and so they have some good players as well. But I thought, particularly in midfield, Sangare and Elliot Anderson totally bullied us for at least 45 minutes.
Yeah. I think when you look at it, it was quite devoid of any goal-mouth action, especially the first half, And yet, I think it's come out that Liverpool faced 12 shots in the first half, the most they've faced in the first half of a Premier League game since 2015. But most of them from outside the box. I think there's only two maybe that troubled the goalie on target or whatever. And it's like, that's a lot to soak up. So your defence has to be on it, at least a bit. And as I said, we'll talk about Ibo Konate very shortly. I think looking at it as an overall, it's like when you're devoid of kind of any real kind of action, it's such a boring watch. It's quite legitimate that people can just turn off and think, well, what's the point? I can't understand the way his teams are playing, that he goes from one extreme to the other. You can watch a game, like I said earlier, you can be so enthralled and be like, right, that was a great game, or a very good game, and then you come to that and it's so dire, and it's like, I can't understand why he can't find a fixed formula. He just seems to like lurch from one way to the other, doesn't he?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a defined playing style, and a lot of it does seem to be off the cuff. I mean, I was looking in the first half. Our build-up play was kind of non-existent. Couldn't really see the ball being fed into midfield, and the midfield, advancing it from there. And when I used to watch us under Jurgen Klopp, I could almost anticipate what the next move was going to be, what the next pass was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think when it's like that, that's why you get the sporadic, inconsistent performances. And that on yesterday that first half was as disjointed as it's been this season. Now, what I would say, and as you said, we'll come on and talk about the likes of Konate shortly, is I do think we're defending our box better than we probably have at any other time this season. I think we've had 3 clean sheets in a row because of that. As you said, they did have 12 shots in that first half, whatever. We did largely keep them at arm's length.
That's true, yeah.
There was the Alisson save in the first couple of minutes when Hudson-Odoi got in one-on-one and Alisson did his trademark save from that scenario. But after that, there wasn't that much goal threat, and they were kept at arm's length. And as I say, I think in recent games, we up until yesterday, I thought we were improving overall. But I think we took many steps backwards yesterday. But one thing I do think that we did well again was the way we defended our box. So that was kind of one positive that came out of it for me.
I've seen a few quotes from ex-Red John Aldridge online, and he said, especially halftime. I'll read the full-time ones in a little bit, but the halftime, he said that wasn't good on the eye. In fact, I'm shocked at what I've been watching. Please don't use injuries as an excuse. And that's fair. Every team does have injuries, and you can only play the fit players, put them out there and hope they perform. And first half especially, they didn't. I mean, what was your thoughts maybe on the second half? Was there a lot of improvement, did you think?
I think it improved. The commentators kept saying it couldn't get any worse, and I was like, I really hope it can't get any worse. And again, I think we controlled the second half. Again, I can't remember too many times where they caused us too much of a problem, and we started to create more opportunities, although quite often it broke down in wide positions in the final third. And then I thought once the substitutions had made, we did look like we had more of an outlet out wide with young Rio coming on. But I thought I wouldn't say it was a much improved performance, but it was better and it got the job done. I think that's all we can say. And I was thinking about it earlier today. If you go through, I think the back, Alisson and the back 3 deserve some credit. When I say the back 3, I exclude right back. Other than that, the rest of it was pretty poor. I don't think I've seen Ryan Gravenberch play as bad as he did. I don't think I've seen Mac Allister give the ball away, and he just looks like he gets caught in terms of mobility, and players run off him quite easily. And I think you can say all 3 forwards were really, really poor. So we've kind of won that game with the defence playing well and not much else.
Yeah. Well, part of that defence, as we've already said, was Ibo Konate. I mean, it's probably arguably one of his most impressive members of the back 4 lately. He's really seemed to have turned a corner, because obviously he was out for a little while because of the passing of his father. And of course that would affect anybody. And yet he seems to have come back, like very clear-headed. He's onto the job. He's doing it well. And he seems to have really kind of settled back into the side, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think since the unfortunate passing of his father, I think he's been outstanding, and arguably one of our best players. And I think what happens a lot is that the forwards will target him more so than they will Virgil, because they see him as the weaker of the two. And I think he's had some difficult people to deal with, like Brian Brobby at Sunderland. I think he's done an outstanding job. Physically, he seems to be dominating like he used to, whereas in the first half of the season, I think he was losing a lot of headers and getting done physically. But since he's come back, he looks like the old Ibo to me. I think his distribution has been good. Because again, we went through that phase where teams were letting him have the ball because he was seen to be the weak link with it. But I think he's using the ball really, really well, and he looks like the Ibo that we know he can be. And I hope in some ways that him being more settled is also to do with the fact that he might be closing in on signing a new deal. Because it's not another player that we want to be replacing, really, especially as he should be about to become into his prime as well.
I think that's the thing here. We've talked about it on quite a few shows during the season, because there's this on-off saga of a contract being offered, then rejected, and Shorty wants the best deal. His agent wants the best deal, so he gets his best cut, and etc. Whether the reported figures are right and whether he's worth that is up to the club to decide, not us. But if he's playing to his full capacity and doing really well, then he's a valued member of the squad, isn't he?
He is, and I think on his day he can be a world-class central defender. And as I say, he's still relatively young. I think he's only 25, 26 maybe.
Yeah.
That's not a time to lose someone that is about to come into their prime. I think his injury record, touchwood, has improved. He seems to be able to play more games on the trot now, whereas in the past I think he's always been a bit in and out the side. So this Ibo from recent games would be an asset for us to keep going forward, because who do you bring in that's going to be much better than him? It's a really difficult one to solve that. So if we can get the deal over the line, it'd be really positive, and one less thing to worry about in the summer.
Of course. I've just checked. He's 26, actually. Yeah. He's turned 27 in May, which is actually older than I thought. Did you see his celebration for the late goal?
Well, I saw two celebrations. One was a cartwheel.
It was, yeah. He did a huge run up, did a cartwheel, and then turned and did a bear hug on Dominic Szoboszlai as well. It was like, I think he was quite excited to get that late goal.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think he loves the club, and I think he's quite a big character in the dressing room. So I think if he was to move on, we'd lose that character, and he seems like quite an infectious character, very popular with his with his teammates, and I think he really does love the club. So I'm hopeful. The noises seem to be a bit more positive, and if we've got him, Virgil, Leone coming back to fitness, Jeremy Jacquet coming in, with Joe Gomez still about, then there's not going to be many better central defensive options than that. But yeah, I saw his cartwheel. It was well executed, to be fair.
It was indeed, yeah.
It got off a fine performance.
Yeah, it did.
Like and subscribe to the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on YouTube.
Just have a look then at the end of the game. Obviously, very chaotic. Come down, like 90 minutes come along, and you're thinking this is going to end up a dour 0-0 draw, and then I don't know, it just seems to spark into life from Liverpool's point of view. Obviously, the first instance, the goal, which was then chalked off from VAR because it hit Alexis Mac Allister on, well, I thought it was his back. They've looked at it and said it was his elbow stroke back. So they've ruled it out as deliberate. And it's like, well, if he had his arm down by his side, and Kev, obviously, who's regular on the show, did message and say, if that was against us, be quite disappointed and maybe angry about it. What was your thoughts on it?
So there was one very clear angle where you could see that it did strike his elbow, and the ones they seemed to be showing the VAR, you couldn't tell. It looked like it could have been his back or a combination of back elbow, but they did show one in the end where it clearly struck his elbow. Now, do I like the fact that that's given us handball? No, but the rule is if it strikes the hand,
Well, yeah.
regardless of whether it's accidental or whether it's deliberate, it is handball. So I think it was correctly ruled out. But when a player's got his back to goal, I find it a little bit harsh that that ruling, like many of the rulings, could probably do with some tweaking, because there's no way he had any idea whatsoever that he was handballing it. So the rule to me seems a bit extreme, but I think the correct decision was made, sadly.
So on that, I'll refer back to John Aldridge. Again, this is a quote from John Aldridge himself, so it's not my personal view. He put out, that's one of the most corrupt decisions I've seen in my 67 years on this earth. Absolute joke. Okay, we didn't deserve it, but a disgrace to football. And then he went on to try and identify, saying, can someone let me know who was the VAR assistants for our game today, folks? Obviously, he didn't pick out any names. We all know who the VAR referee was. Again, I'm not saying that he done anything wrong. He's followed the rule of, as we said, of VAR. And in that instance, it was very disappointing to see it ruled out as a Liverpool fan. But going by the letter of the law, it was correct. Who would have thought, not much further down the line than that, there'd be yet more controversy. Because again, Alexis Mac Allister gets the ball into the net. I just feel that the end of the game itself was such a mad period. How we ended up with we stole it from Notts Forest, really, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we did. Although on the balance of play overall, they probably deserved. I wouldn't say that they clearly deserved to win the game.
No, that's fair.
I felt that probably a draw, with them dominating the first half and us being better in the second half, was probably the right result. But I think we deserve a little bit of credit for the way that we did. We did continue to push, and we're miles ahead of any other team in terms of goals after 90 minutes. And I think we do have that mentality. We still seem to have that mentality. Unfortunately, at both ends this season.
Well, yeah.
Of scoring and conceding after that. So,
do you know, as soon as that went in, of course, they were going, this might be offside. And then they were looking at Virgil van Dijk, etc. And I was thinking, you've got to be joking me. This is like 2 in 2 minutes type thing. This cannot be, happening again. And then they finally checked it and gave it, which was a big relief to us. Obviously, their new manager was furious. I think he's took an instant dislike to the Premier League. And VAR especially. But I mean, to see that go in at least and be given after a bit of a wait, that was a nice relief at least.
It was, because I think when you first looked at the still, so I think it was Virgil, wasn't it, that headed Szoboszlai's back across goal. When you looked at the still, he looked offside. But what I hadn't realised, and I'm sure, and I think there's a lot of complaints about this today, saying that it still should have been ruled out for offside, was that the right back, Ola Aina, was behind Virgil, and he was largely blocked out by Virgil, so you couldn't really see him. But if you look closely, you could just see his leg was just playing him onside. But my instant reaction was, I think he's offside. And then I was relieved to see Aina's leg there, and also that he was just playing him onside. But then today I'm hearing complaints that people are saying Ekitike was offside, which he was, but and that he was interfering with play. But I don't know. He was there, but Virgil headed it back across goal. So
I sometimes, I've got to be honest, I'm confused sometimes by the way VAR says who's interfering and who isn't. Liverpool have had it go against them earlier this season. And I think there was a similar situation last season where Man City's goal was given, even though they said, I think it was Bernardo Silva they said was interfering with play, but they let it stand. And then earlier this season, Liverpool's similar, didn't stand. So it's like, and I do find sometimes I look at the stills and I look at the video footage that VAR are looking at, and I'm like, whichever the decision is, I can't see it sometimes. I'm just like, oh, it's confusing, and it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing has become confused, and it's almost paralysis by analysis. it seems to go looking for things that it doesn't need to. So if it's not obvious on the eye after you've watched it 3-4 times, then I don't see how you can sort of decide, and this is this particular instance of, is he interfering, is he not interfering, is a difficult one. And as you say, that Bernardo Silva one, they gave the Virgil van Dijk goal at Man City when Robertson was there, they didn't.
Yeah.
And again, the consistency of that is, it's just not consistent. So, interfering with play I don't know whether it used to be when they had to touch the ball.
I thought it was. Yeah.
But now it seems to be their
whatever VAR pick now.
Yeah, their take on, is he in the goalie's way? Is he obstructed defender? But I thought Ekitike wasn't in this instance.
You can follow the LFC Total Red Football Podcast on X, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, it may not have been pretty, the whole game. It's impossible to deny, though, that it's a big win for Liverpool, in terms of the race for Champions League football, with Chelsea and Manchester United, which I think a few weeks ago would have actually been unthinkable, because we weren't playing well enough. There's no guarantee they're obviously going to make Champions League, but I think either United or Chelsea won't relish the fact that the current league champions are now breathing down their neck, will they?
No, they won't. And we've got a little bit of momentum now. So after the defeat, really good win away at Sunderland, where I thought we did play well. And then another, as I say, going to the City grounds, a tough one. So Chelsea have got some really difficult games in the next 6. So I think they're away at Arsenal on Sunday. So yeah, they won't be relishing it, especially if we can start to pick up a bit of momentum. I think we're slightly more consistent than we have been, other than those first 5-6 games of the season. So we now need to build on that. But to do so, we'll need to play a lot better than we did.
You're listening to the LFC Total Red Football Podcast.
So the result went our way. We're all kind of a little bit happy that we got the points. I'm going to pick out one of the standouts, really, was Rio Ngumoha. To be fair, he only came on for 15 minutes or whatever. Replaced Salah on the right, where a lot of the time he's been out on the left. Salah hadn't done much all game, to be honest, and was it about 8 or 9 games, Premier League games now that he hasn't even scored, which is a massive drought for him. And I'm hoping, obviously, that'll come good soon. But 17 years old, playing on the wing, coming up off the bench, he is some talent, isn't he?
He is. And I think what impresses me more than anything is his decision making in and around the box. I think he knows when to run and try and beat a player and get a cross in, as he did for the first disallowed goal. But he also knows when it's probably not on and he needs to retain possession and recycle it. So I think he's quite mature in terms of his decision making. There's a lot of clamour now for him to obviously start games. And I'm seeing noises today saying that Slot doesn't kind of think he's ready. However, when both wide players play as they did, and they were both appalling, I thought Cody Gakpo was poor. I thought Mo Salah was really poor, and Salah had been better in the last couple of games, particularly against Brighton. He is a young kid, but how do you justify continuing to pick someone like Gakpo, who's been out of form for a long time, ahead of him? Now, whether he's worried about his defensive side, I don't know, but he must be close to getting a start, because he is exciting and he's going to scare the life out of defenders.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember players like Michael Owen coming through, or Robbie Fowler, young lads who were hungry. Now, I know it's completely different now in the Premier League. They play these under-23s, etc., and they're drip-fed into the side because there's such high stakes, I suppose. So days like that, when are so few and far between for a 17-year-old to break through and just play. So I do understand from Slot's point of view. He wants to say, and I think he said, he's talented. and he is getting better, and he will play more. But when you see that, you think he's come on, he's played really well. Give him a chance. If you put him on for 60 minutes, say against West Ham, which, to be honest, I would start him. So that was my next thing to you. Would you start him? Because I think if after 60 minutes you think, you know what, he's done enough, and put one of the others on, but you've given him his chance, and that'll give him so much confidence to say, you know what, I started for Liverpool instead of 10, 15 minutes normally, or 5 minutes sometimes at the end of a game. I think it would boost his confidence even more to try harder, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if we're going to stick with the same shape, then I would start him on the left ahead of Gakpo. I think he does deserve it. And funnily enough, I was at both Fowler and Owen's debuts. So Fowler away at Fulham and Owen away at Wimbledon. They both scored. And them coming into the team, they didn't leave the team after that or some time. Anyway, so you just don't know. He could explode and suddenly be the catalyst for a brilliant end to the season for us. And
this is it.
And I see so much possession breaking down on both sides of the pitch. And I love Salah, and I would find it very difficult to leave him out. But I think he will give us more in possession than both of those two at the moment. So if we're going to stick with the shape of having two wide players, then I would do. I've got a feeling he'll bring Wirtz back in, and maybe he'll play from the left side with Ekitike and Salah on the right. So I still think he'll resist it, but it can't be long, because you just, as I say, he could explode like Fowler, like Owen did, and we never look back.
I wonder. I mean, this is a long shot, because as we know what Arne Slot like, as we've just said. But I wonder if maybe Frimpong might be ready by the weekend. So put Dominic Szoboszlai back in midfield, and Wirtz in the side. So there's the powerhouse running back and two. You got Wirtz creating, and put Ngumoha on the wing as well. It's like, well, then you've got somebody doing all the work in the midfield, and Dom's been brilliant, to be fair.
Yeah,
his work rate and his free kicks. You've got Wirtz then, who's now seems to be really picking up and starting to enjoy his football. And then you've got somebody like Rio Ngumoha on the wing, who's there to impress and seems to have, as he should at 17, bags of energy. You think, well, that's a lot of attacking intent then, isn't it, with Ekitike up front?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think getting, as you said, getting Szoboszlai back in midfield, I think is key. Our improvement yesterday actually coincided with him moving into that position. So I think Frimpong might be back, but I don't know if he'll be ready to start. But I don't see why Joe Gomez can't play right back. Did well when he come on. His long throw caused a lot of problems. So, people have been using it against us. Let's use that as an asset against them. So I would under no circumstances play Szoboszlai at right back. I'd get him into midfield, and having his legs in midfield, as you say, should allow the likes of Wirtz and Ngumoha to then thrive.
Well, hopefully Arne Slot's watching this then, and he takes our advice, Neil.
I don't think he will.
Shall see. I know he watches. I just don't think he takes our advice. That's what it is, isn't it?
No, he's quite stubborn.
He is indeed. Just quickly looking ahead to the West Ham game, then obviously they're playing at the weekend at Anfield. You'd expect the lads to get 3 points, but as was proved against Forest, and they're so up and down with their performances, it's going to be a tough game. West Ham are really fighting, and if they put in at maybe a low block, kind of, that really seems to trouble Liverpool. If they come out of there with a point, I'm sure they'd be happy, but they should be getting 3 points at this stage, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely, they should. West Ham have improved. There's no doubt about that, but we need to go and take the game to them. We can't have these slow starts, wasting 45 minutes before we decide we're going to play. So I think if we go out with a positive intent and take the game to them, rather than this slow sort of try and keep possession, even though we didn't do that against Forest. I think if we go at them, then we can get a couple of goals ahead and win the game comfortably. I think if we don't, and we get to 45 minutes or an hour and it's 0-0, then I think we're vulnerable. So I said this to someone yesterday that they asked how I thought we'd do against Forest. And I said it's all about us. If we turn up and we perform with the individuals that we've got, we will win game. We will win the game. And I think it's the same against West Ham. I don't think we'll be bullied as much in midfield because I thought Sangare, Elliot Anderson and Gibbs White are a physical, mobile midfield. West Ham will be a bit more laboured in there with the likes of Souček. So I think we'll get a little bit more time on the ball than we had yesterday.
So, as it says on the screen there, score prediction. What's your scores prediction for this weekend now?
I'm going to go for another clean sheet, and I'm going to go Liverpool 2, West Ham 0.
Oh, that's spelty now, because I was going to go exactly the same. I'll stick with that as well. So we'll both go for the same one and a clean, like we said, clean sheet. That's it, Neil. To be fair, we had the Nottingham Forest game to talk about, obviously, Ngumoha and Konate, etc., and the goals at the end, and one that wasn't, one that thankfully give 3 points and a push towards Champions League. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And giving us your thoughts. We'll be back next week with another show. You can like and subscribe on YouTube or on TikTok. You can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., or whatever you get your podcast from. So please give us a follow on that as well. And like I say, we'll be back with another show analysing what happened against West Ham. But until then, thank you very much for tuning in to the LFC Total Red Football Podcast.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time for more LFC Total Red Football Podcast.